Feels good to know that you're still there with us. Let's head now to our first conversation on the program where we're looking at leadership and development challenges in Nigeria, charting a way forward. We are being joined by a seasoned public speaker and, of course, his one-time local government chairman aspirant for Igwebe Local Government Council. He's a person of Dr. Pascal Ebohime. Good morning, Dr. Pascal. I'm glad to have you join us.
Good morning. It's nice to have me here.
Okay. Quickly walk us through, Dr. Pascal, how would you assess the quality of leadership in Nigeria over the past decade in addressing key development issues, especially now that we just clocked 64?
That's a very good question. To look at the quality of leadership in Nigeria from the time of independence, we would like to identify a few criteria for doing so. Number one, it is important that a leader and leadership, must be properly understood by people who want to take the position, either as the president of Nigeria or as a governor or as a chairman of a local government. First is the issue of strategic thinking, of visionary and strategic thinking. A good leader must have a very strong vision for the country, and he should be able to think strategically over the next 20, 30, or 40 years. You will recall after independence, if we had leaders who were visionary, who were able to think strategically, to say in the next 20, 30, 40 years, this is the kind of country we should have. And then they'll begin to plan strategically by taking certain decisions, at that point in time, geared towards achieving that collective aspiration of the people in all areas, both education, socio-cultural, political, economic, so that in the 20 or 30 years down the road, we would have been able to realize some of the things they thought about. That is one. Two, the issue of transparency in governance and accountability. A good leader must be able to be accountable to the people and be seen to be transparent. It's very, very important. Then the third criteria that I think we should look at is issue of inclusivity and social justice. A country that can be described as plural, with a multicultural, multi-religious, and socio-political setting, should be able to consider, the inclusion of minorities and those vulnerable groups, youth, women, and a few other marginalized groups. They must be able to consider them in the governance space. Then the fourth criterion, which I believe is important for quality of leadership in Nigeria, has to do with fighting corruption. The greatest problem we have in Nigeria today is corruption, very pervasive, from the low-level people to the high-level people. Corruption is pervasive, and the only way we can fight corruption is leadership by example. A leader must therefore have high level of integrity. He must be able to show example and put the public first. He must put service first, right? Rather than having leaders who are what I can describe as self-conceited, or looking at what each and every one of them can gain, rather than focusing on the public good or service to the people. Now, you also know the issue of economic development and poverty reduction. The major problem we have in Nigeria today is high level of unemployment and high level of poverty, looking at the multidimensional poverty of country like Nigeria as a developing nation. A good leader must be able, to come out with clear economic policies and create employment and bring about poverty reduction through many economic policies. But he cannot do that unless he's able to galvanize the collective energy of our people by investing in education, good health, right? So that you can mobilize the people of this country, leverage on the competencies, of the people, coupled with his own competence as a leader to drive the economic strategy and development strategy of this country. You find out that for Nigeria to move forward, education, health are major instruments, or rather, they are major interventions, social interventions that will help to, improve the productivity level of the Nigerian people. You must invest in developing the competencies and the health of our people toward that end. So, if you look at since independence, most of our leaders believe that their role is to take over a position, what they call transactional leadership or positional leadership. That is not enough just to be able to enjoy the purposes of the office. We need transformational leaders that will face the burden of leadership. There is the burden of leadership. These are the
Dr.
challenges
Pastor.
facing us as a nation. So most leaders we have had, either as presidents or governors, they have not faced the burden of leadership in this country. Because leadership is about visioning. Strategic transformation is key to the transformation of this country. So that we move from where we are to a state where every Nigerian will be committed to the development process. But that is
I would
not
like
what we
us
are
to
seeing
take it
today
a little bit
from our
further
leaders.
now. I would like us to take it a little bit further. Some persons or some stakeholders, as it were, are of the opinion that this current administration has not really done well. From your submission, we need leaders that knows what to do. So what are the biggest obstacles Nigerian leaders face when implementing development policies?
The first obstacle they have is for them is personal. The leader himself must see himself as a service provider. The moment the leader begins to think about himself first, and rather than serving the public, is serving himself, that is a major obstacle he has to face. In other words, there must be unalloyed commitment to service. There must be a service compact with all Nigeria. I should focus on it. The second obstacle is this problem of corruption, which is pervasive in the country. A leader must fight corruption if he has to move forward. And that fighting corruption means that he must govern the collective strength of Nigerian people. He must lead by example. He must do what is expected. He must be accountable to the people. He must be transparent. So the issue of ethical leadership, morality is key. He has to be seen to be morally balanced. He must comply with ethical and moral standards in the conduct of leadership, in the conduct of government business. So another obstacle that you have to bear in mind is to appreciate the diversity of Nigerian people and the need to be able to consult, the various stakeholders, gain their insights, listen to them, have sense of urgency. A situation when a leader just came to power without extensive consultation, he rushed to remove the fuel subsidy. For me, that was not good enough. He ought to have consulted widely, get deeper insight as to what needs to be done, and then sit with those people to deal with this complex problem, because it's a complex problem. When you are dealing with a complex problem in a country like Nigeria that require taking difficult decisions, the appropriate decision-making style must be consensus, must be group decision-making. It should not be one man sitting on the table and taking such a decision. There will be excessive consultation and group decision-making. There is the issue of the rule of law. A good leader must be able to comply with the rule of law, not only in terms of adherence to principles of justice and ensuring that there is fairness and equity in the administration of justice in Nigeria. Now, the moment this is done, that of course will promote or facilitate development of this country. But a situation where there is no rule of law, and even where they exist, is not adequately enforced by the government, that in itself will not go well for development. Now, it is also important, talking about international relations and diplomacy, because Nigeria is not an island. A good leader must be able to, establish, effective diplomacy or relationship. So that will help to promote, direct investment. That will help to, manage our image and reputation outside this country, because these things are important in terms of foreign investment, in terms of, joining hands with the government of Nigeria to bring about development. It is also important for a good leader, to look at the issue of innovation and technology. In today's world, you cannot do much if you don't understand the dynamic nature of the environment. The globalization experience tells us that whatever happened in America or in Britain will affect what happened in Nigeria. So it is important that, apart from having the competence to adapt, to situations and the complex nature of the world, it is also important that we embrace technology, because without technology and digital revolution, we cannot go too far, in enhancing the pace of development in Nigeria. Now, a good leader, even from the perspective of what I call, inclusion, must be able to, involve all other political parties, even more than they are currently doing, in terms of, the governance, what I call inclusive governance, so that it becomes a collaborative approach to development. A situation where a state government belongs to, like, PDP, the federal government is APC, they should be able to work together, seamlessly, so that policies of the federal government can be bought into by all the other state governments, and then move towards a common direction, because we're actually pursuing the common destiny. So if we have an inclusive government, an inclusive leadership that bring everybody together, then of course development will be faster.
Okay,
it is also
let's talk about
to bear this in mind.
okay.
The issue of insecurity
Yeah.
is a big challenge to leadership. We must put that as a top priority. The leadership of today must put that as a top priority. For me, there's some point fighting bandits and Boko Haram for 10 years without making huge progress. We must be able to strategize and defeat terrorism, so that farmers can go back to their farms, businesses can thrive. But the way it is now, people are afraid. They cannot even travel to their villages. Farmers can't go to their farms. So a top priority of this leadership is to fight insecurity, and mobilize the effort of all the state governments, community leaders, traditional rulers, put a lot of resources to fight insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay, now let's move on now.
These are some of the challenges.
Okay,
yes.
Walk us through now. What can the private sector and civil society, what role can they play in supporting leadership to overcome these development challenges that you highlighted earlier on?
You see, we cannot move forward as a nation without the involvement and collaborative effort of private sector and civil societies or human rights groups. They have been playing their role. It's now left for the government or the leadership to be open to advice, to be open to suggestions, to be open to constructive engagement. If a leader is autocratic, is not ready to listen to the voice of wisdom, the voice of competence from people who are competent, those who operate in the private sector and civil rights organizations, then it is not very likely leadership will take this kind of advice that will facilitate development of the country. So by and large, the two should cooperate to move this country forward.
Dr. Pascal, we sincerely want to have you again so that we can extend or go deeper into the conversation. Thank you so much, despite the impromptu notice you still made it on the program. We sincerely appreciate you.
Yes, just the last word. A leader must make sufficient sacrifice. He must be service oriented, and
Okay.
finally, he must be ready, right, to to give all to the service of mankind.
Okay,
He should
sir.
not be self-serving.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Pascal Ebohime, for coming.